It's the Teachers of the Year for photos.
Oh, perfect, okay. Should I call out the people in the middle still standing?
Just come to order, let's shape up.
I said it. Thank you. I always like doing that, so cool, right?
Scared me.
I did it.
I know, he did it, I did not do that, just in case that needed clarification.
For time out.
Never too old, not my children. Okay, so with that, we will start the meeting and we will have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Reyes?
Here.
Mr. Nielsen?
Here.
Mrs. Contreras?
Here.
Mrs. Sashanek?
Here. Thank you. We'll have a pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll ask for a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll ask for board member statements. Do we have any? Yes, Mr. Nielsen.
I know that we're going to talk about this a little bit later in our meeting today, but I just want to say congratulations to all of those that participated in the Teacher of the Year one Tuesday morning. Had the opportunity to go down there and had an enjoyable lunch and a great time with our teachers as well as the other teachers that have been recognized throughout the West Valley. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes.
I was able this past a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago to get to the Educator Appreciation function that the Littleton Foundation hosted, and I was really excited. I just happened to sit down next to a lovely woman who teaches at Country Place. I believe it was 2nd grade. And she said that her school just was home out of all the schools she's ever taught. Country Place was home to her. And so that just made me feel so good. And I don't think she knew I was a board member. I wasn't wearing my badge, but who knows? And then after that, I got to go to the Fine Arts Academy and watch Matilda, and that was just amazing. So impressed with our students there. And then lastly, I found out that my second job cannot be bowling. Mr. Nielsen and I tried our best with our spouses, but we did not win the award at the bowling fundraiser. But I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. Anything else? So I also echo those. I had a chance to go to the bowling event. I am smart enough not to bowl because I don't know how. So but it was fun watching people and enjoying their time. We don't get to do that a lot. And of course, the Teacher of the Year and Principal of the Year and all of that, that's amazing. And some of the speeches were very dynamic and reminds you of why you do what you do. So thank you all in advance. I know we'll do it again, but enough recognition is never enough. So thank you. So with that, Dr. Freeman, we'll turn it over to you for your report.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Buenas tardes a todos. Good evening, everybody. We have so much to celebrate in May. Today is Dia de las Madres. We all know it's a very special celebration in many households across the district. And since it fell in a board meeting day, I want to make sure, take this opportunity to congratulate all the moms for Mother's Day, whether they celebrated them past Sunday or celebrating today. We believe everybody in Littleton is an educator in one way or another, and so we're celebrating the work that they do to ensure every student has the tools they need to reach their full potential. In honor of Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week, our staff is enjoying tokens of appreciation that are made possible through various donations. You may have noticed members' baggies at the DS. Those are to show our appreciation to you as board members by sharing some of the tokens that have gone out to staff. We recognize that teachers play a vital role in shaping the future of our children and our nation at large, and They're the heart of everything we do here to ensure they receive the guidance, motivation needed to lead them towards a successful future. Last week, as members have referenced, we started with the recognition of our West Side Impact Principal and Teachers of the Year. They were celebrated with a ceremony in person at Grand Canyon University with other school districts and with President Reyes and Mr. Nielsen. And so we're excited that they're joining us this evening in person to be recognized by the board. We haven't been able to honor honorees in the boardroom all throughout the pandemic, so we're looking forward to having everybody up here later on the agenda. I'd also like to recognize Dr. Cagle as an exemplary principal. Since we met here last, there was a surprise celebration at Country Place Leadership Academy. There are principals who are awarded with an exemplary principal award by the Maricopa County Superintendent. They have opinions, experience, and preferences for those that lead consistently to leverage those perspectives in decision-making, and as a result, they have safe and supportive environments. Students achieve academically, emotionally, they're safe. Teachers remain in the profession, and during the recognition, Maricopa County School Superintendent Steve Watson acknowledged Dr. Cagle by saying he is a collaborative leader who's intentional and strategic about building leadership capacity in students and teachers. He's unwaveringly positive and passionate about helping each child discover their strengths. So congratulations to Dr. Cagle for being a 2022 Maricopa County Exemplary Principal. The Association of School Business Officials has again awarded the district with Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's the 13th consecutive year the district's received this award. It's the highest standard of recognition in the area of government accounting and financial reporting. We have in our district some other amazing treasure hunters, and they were celebrated at their own sites daily last week. A list of those activities is pretty extensive, but I want to share some of them. Some are pretty creative. At Collier, they traveled the world for Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week with in-flight breakfast bars, meals, and in-flight snack cart, which traveled to classrooms offering snacks and beverages. I'm not sure if that actually looked like one of those in-flight carts, but I get the idea that the food went to the teacher didn't have to come to the food. Fine Arts performed the Sweet Suite throughout the week. On Monday, their overture began with fresh donuts. Tuesday, the Allemande had its origins in the German Renaissance and was celebrated with gummy bears and other sugary treats. Wednesday was the Curat, a lively French dance in triple meter that celebrated the Domino's Pizza. Thursday, session band, a Spanish dance that involved a nacho bar, and finally on Friday, the Zieg, a lively Baroque dance in compound meter, wrapped up with celebrations with a buffet of mixed treats to energize and awaken the souls of their hard-working teachers. At Quinton STEM Academy, parents and students had the opportunity to use Google Forms to write why they appreciate their teachers, and then the forms were printed and handed out to the teachers, and the staff were also treated as snacks throughout the week, and the PTA served up a delicious lunch for everybody on Friday. So thank you to all the PTAs and PTSAs, various committees who organize treats to show appreciation for our teachers and staff. A big thanks goes out to Littleton Education Foundation, sent gift cards to all their staff, their choice of Starbucks, Target, or Amazon cards. We also want to thank everybody who participated in the annual bowling fundraiser last week, especially to all the sponsors. The foundation board and sponsors did more than just provide funds. They helped with planning and logistics, and oh boy, we have some serious bowlers. Not at the Diaz here, but we know those funds will help move the foundation forward and benefit our teachers and students through several programs. So we want to thank everybody, including all the board members, because your participation helps make all of that possible. On top of that, Thursday, an employee in our district who put in a request for tickets. Actually, what we found out is any employee in our district could put in a request for tickets to attend the Coldplay Her concert at State Farm Stadium for free. There was no limit on tickets because we wanted everybody to be able to spend time with other staff and their families as well. So I've heard that the staff in charge is furiously working to process those requests, and the event's sure to be great fun. When is that? Thursday? This coming Thursday? All right. I don't know who those people are. So most of my favorite musicians aren't with us anymore. But wait, there's more. The festivities wrap up next week with a food truck on May 18th. And the food trucks will be serving different cuisines stationed around our different school sites so employees can enjoy a free meal. I think there's a ticket in your envelope there. And so hold on to that food truck ticket till next week. You can use that to go get a free meal at one of the food trucks at one of our sites, and you can enjoy that on that day as well. Because Cinco de Mayo was last week, it was hard to get a food truck during Teacher Appreciation Week. So we just moved it to this week. The first Friday of May marked the 10th annual School Lunch Hero Day. School Lunch Hero was designed to raise awareness and recognize the impact of school nutrition professionals and the impact they have on every child who receives a school meal. The leadership at Southwest Food Service Excellence promoted this day at the schools with a flyer posted numerous places to encourage staff, students, and families to thank our lunch heroes. Tomorrow, May 11th, and that is School Nurse Day. So that day honors daily efforts of school nurses to ensure students are safe and assure their well-being. So the COVID-19 pandemic, as everybody knows, has emphasized the essential role school nurses play in the health of students and their ability to learn. So thank you so much to our nurse and nurse aides. We commend them for their tireless efforts, and what we all learned was essential staff in the last couple years. Pivoting out of the pandemic this year meant that we had local art shows instead of gathering all of the art at the Avondale Library. The artwork at the schools we're still able to display was pretty remarkable, and I'm going to assist in judging by selecting some of the purchase awards for the traveling display in the conference rooms around the district office. I'd like to thank the art teachers for their work to bring forth artists and our students for some pretty impressive displays, considering all the movement and everything we had going around this year. I also want to remind everybody about the fourth and final coffee talk for the 21-22 school year, because this event is going to be in person for the first time in more than 2 years. And that's right here, I think, isn't it? And so we're planning a celebration coming together with discussion of possible topics for the coffee talk for next year. We've had a lot of partners presenting on topics this year, such as Parent View, Hazel Health, athletics, social emotional care at home, spring testing, programs for young learners, free tax preparation, nutrition, meal applications, school choice have all been part of our prior sessions. So with Nora Behar, our parent liaison, has done an awesome job in organizing those presenters and having raffles and coffee cups to give away. So a lot of thanks to them. And, you know, please, if you haven't had a chance to be involved in that, everyone's welcome. Other events you might want to check out: returning to in-person Fine Arts Academy Dance Showcase is May 13th, and the Bringers of Noise Choir Concert on May 20th. Both of those are free of charge. Our last day of school for the 21-22 school year is May 25th. 8th grade promotion ceremonies are right around the corner. It's a big milestone for students towards their future careers. We look forward to celebrating that with them. Those ceremonies will be on May 23rd. They'll be in person, but there is a limit to the number of guests because that's a lot of people in one room at one time. Those ceremonies start at 8 or 9 or 10, depending on the school you're at. Those times can be found in our newsletters, website calendars, social media posts. And that's all I have this evening, Madam President.
At this time, we're going to turn it over for our program showcase. So I'll turn it over to you. Oh, I don't want to do that. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, good, thank you. Curtis, at this point, we'll let you do the reading of reading for resolution of teacher appreciation, and any other resolutions that may need to be read. Thank you for volunteering.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Well, okay.
All right. Oops. Whereas the impact and value that teachers and support staff provide to our families and children is immeasurable. Whereas teachers encounter students of widely different backgrounds and who face a myriad of daily challenges. Whereas teachers spend countless hours and resources in preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, educating and performing services to our community. Whereas teachers fill roles as listeners, explore role models, mentors, and treasure hunters. Whereas there are almost 60,000 active teachers in the Arizona workforce, working tirelessly during some of the most challenging times we have ever faced. Whereas during these trying times, our teachers have been resilient and resourceful in doing all possible to make sure that the students continue to receive a quality education. Whereas since the first official Teacher Appreciation Day in 1980, we are reminded every year how much we have to give and show thanks to our teachers for all that they do to shape the lives of our children. Now therefore, be it resolved that Littleton Elementary School District Governing Board celebrates the first week of May as National Teacher Appreciation Week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So now we'll turn it over to Ms. Vanderwater and Gerson for a program showcase.
Thank you, President Reyes, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Freeman, and community. I am honored to present to you this evening the West Side Impact Teachers of the Year, along with our West Side Impact Principal of the Year. This year has been filled with amazing stories of teacher excellence as they work to support their students, schools, and communities. It is our honor to recognize their hard work as this year's West Side Impact Teachers of the Year. Every year, one teacher from each school within Littleton Elementary School District is voted by their peers to be their West Side Impact Teacher of the Year. First, we'd like to recognize Collier Business Academy's Mr. Gallegos, 8th grade math teacher, who was selected by Collier Business Academy for financial literacy for his leadership and dedication to all students at Collier. We're going to ask you to come forward, Mr. Gallegos. He exemplifies characteristics such as perseverance, tenacity, risk-taking, creativity, and not being afraid to go against the grain when making the best decisions possible for our students. Mr. Gallegos takes on extra responsibilities, utilizing his own time to create special experiences for students. He took students to Washington, D.C., where they were able to experience history and foundation of our country. He is a collaborator and goes out of his way to welcome and mentor new teachers. We are honored that Jeremiah Gallegos is our Teacher of the Year at Collier. We'd now like to recognize Country Place Leadership Academy teacher, Mrs. Trapeze, 4th grade teacher. She was selected by the staff at Country Place Leadership Academy as their Teacher of the Year. She is an outstanding teacher. She is very skilled at unpacking standards and teaching to the standard. She truly cares about each and every student. She goes above and beyond to make sure she meets her students' needs as well as supports them both academically and in their personal life. She is an amazing team lead who respects our time, values our ideas and concerns, and advocates for the team. She makes sure our voice and opinions are being heard. We are very proud to nominate Mrs. Astrid Trepaz as our Teacher of the Year. I got it right the second time. Sorry, Astrid. Estrella Vista STEM Academy, Mrs. Aduwumi, second grade teacher, was selected by the staff of Estrella Vista STEM Academy to be their Teacher of the Year. She models the district's core values and is positive and professional in every interaction. She holds high expectations for her students and won't settle for anything less. For this year, she consistently has the top achievement scores for the grade level on all assessments. She takes the time to get to know each one of her students and designs lessons to best meet their needs. She builds strong relationships with her students and families. She is a team player and fully participates in the collaborative team meetings. She is committed to improving her practice and is a nationally board certified teacher candidate. We are so proud of her to receive this award. Next, we have Fine Arts Academy, Miss Ria Citadel, Ciadella? Ciadella, third grade teacher. She is an outstanding teacher who exemplifies all of our district's core values. She collaborates with her peers, seeks feedbacks from others, is flexible, reliable, and truly passionate. She is student-centered and dedicates her time and efforts into doing what's best for students and their families. She creates safe learning environments and builds lasting relationships. Every day she comes to school excited to learn and grow. She has recently become a spokesperson for arts integration on the campus. She is hardworking and humble and always does whatever is needed to bring out the best in all of her children, setting high expectations for her students and for herself. She's an extraordinary educator, and we are grateful she is part of our Littleton family. I do not believe that Mr. Fish was able to come this evening, but we'd like to recognize him. He is from our Littleton Online Academy. Mr. Fish is a fifth grade teacher. He's an exemplary member of the LESD online community. He is dedicated to the success of students, colleagues, and campus community. He consistently displays remarkable character, sound judgment, and positivity in the face of challenges. He's a reflective instructor and seeks out opportunities to grow and refine in his craft. Mr. Fish takes advantage of opportunities to build students' confidence to remain passionately involved in their academic responsibilities. In these trying times, he has remained a consistent figure in the students' lives and has earned their endearment and respect of those lucky enough to work alongside of him. He is truly a treasure hunter and deserves this recognition. Next, we have Littleton STEM Academy, fourth grade teacher, Ms. Johnson. She was selected to represent Littleton STEM Academy as their Teacher of the Year, chosen based upon her commitment to students, always working to ensure that they are supported, held to high expectations, and know that they are cared for. She worked to support new teachers as one of the leads for the New Teacher Boot Camp, as well as working with the Focus Committee to create positive events for students and our community to engage in and around the coding focus. She willingly opens the doors to other teachers to visit or watch recorded sessions to support instructional rounds, professional development, and the professional learning community process. She has worked for the betterment of the entire campus and community, and we are so thankful for her hard work, dedication, and commitment to education. Quinton STEM Academy's Mrs. Robinson was voted as their Teacher of the Year for her hard work and dedication to the school. Mrs. Robinson is innovative with ways to help students close any learning gaps that they may have. She's positive and energetic, her personality is contagious, and she is a role model for staff and students. Mrs. Robinson believes all students are capable of success, and students love being a part of her classroom. She has an open line of communication with all of her families and provides additional support for her students. She is always willing to collaborate with her peers and support and mentor them. Mrs. Robinson goes above and beyond for Quinton and our entire community. The staff at Trace Rios Service Learning Academy are proud to recognize Miss Melissa Hoppy, sixth grade teacher. Ms. Hoppy holds a genuine love for her students, her colleagues, and her community, and it shows through every facet of her work. She's a reflective practitioner. She's dedicated to learning and growing in order to best serve students. While Ms. Hoppy's high level of professionalism, competencies alone qualify her for this recognition, it is truly her personal touch she brings to our campus that sets her apart. One colleague noted, Melissa comes in with a positive attitude, can put a smile on anyone's face, and will be there for anyone in this building with an ear to listen, a mouth to support with, and arms to comfort. It is for these reasons and so many more that Ms. Melissa Hoppy is the perfect representative of our Puma community, and we are honored that she is our Teacher of the Year. We have a Westside Impact Principal of the Year to honor from Quinton STEM Academy for Health Sciences, Dr. Lonnie Fife. Attributes of an outstanding principal include being a student-centered leader, having a shared vision, communicating clearly, being an active listener, motivating positive change, demonstrating situational leadership, and empowering others. In the past 5 years working with Dr. Fife, she has been an exemplar for Quinton STEM Academy. She is a dedicated professional, and under her leadership, the school was awarded A+ School of Excellence and the PLC Model School. Dr. Fife believes that all students have the right to a rigorous and fair education. Dr. Fife promotes a positive climate with her staff through her exceptional leadership skills. She listens and responds to teachers' needs and is so very deserving of this award. And I am turning it over to Mrs. Garrison to recognize our retirees.
Thank you, Ms. Vandewater. I'm going to start with the people who are not in the room. So Dr. Freeman and President Reyes, you can stay there for a moment. The first 3 people on the list, I do not believe are in the room. I think they took their retirement early. Mr. John Hopper, are you here? No, Mr. John Hopper has been a dedicated school district employee since 1992. He began his school career in Orange County, California. He worked as a day and lead custodian in the Fullerton School District. Mr. Hopper began serving the Littleton community in 2010. He has been a night custodian at both Trace Real Service Learning Academy and Country Place Leadership Academy. Mr. Hopper is always ready to help with anything that is needed. He does amazing work preparing our schools for our staff and students. Student achievement is positively impacted when students have a safe and orderly environment. Mr. Hopper has been a huge part of creating a safe, clean atmosphere for students for over 30 years. Thank you, Bull, for all you have done. Have fun on your ranch. Next up, Ms. Teresita Escobar, also not in the room. She began her teaching career as an elementary teacher in Mexico in 1985. She moved to Tucson in 1993 and worked as a middle school Spanish teacher. She came to the Valley in 1998 and began her work as a bilingual teacher's assistant. She quickly became a middle school teacher and has never looked back. For 23 years, she has been a middle school teacher. She taught communication arts, SCI, and language arts. She arrived in the Littleton Elementary School District in 2011 and has served the Country Place community for 11 years. Her excellence in teaching has shown her students' academic growth and an impact she has made on their lives. She has brought a passion for literature, writing, and culture to his students. Thank you, T, for your dedication and service. Miss Teresa Munoz joined the Littleton team in 1992. She applied to be a cafeteria substitute after hearing about the job from someone named Iola. She worked at Greer Farms, which was just across the street from where her office sits today. According to her handwritten application, she didn't have a food handler's license, but she works hard and learns fast. We were lucky to get her, as she spent 30 years in our food services department supporting the important work that goes into making sure our students eat. We'd like to thank Teresa for her 3 decades of service to our district and wish her the best for whatever she decides to do next. Now, Dr. Freeman. Miss Valerie Cohen began her teaching career in Nebraska as a kindergarten teacher in 1992. She moved to Arizona in 1999 and began teaching in the Liberty Elementary School District. While in Liberty, she taught 6th grade and technology. She then moved into the Catholic school system where she taught 5th grade and technology. She joined the Littleton Elementary School District in 2017. She has taught 3rd grade at Country Place Leadership Academy. During her teaching career, Valerie has searched for genius and leadership in her students. She has coached volleyball, sponsored National Junior Honor Society, and been involved in student activities too numerous to list. She has supported the districts and school in which she has worked by leading leadership teams, supporting curriculum adoptions, and mentoring staff in technology. Ms. Cohen has positively impacted the lives of so many students, staff members, and communities. Thank you for more than 20 years of service in education. Okay, buddy. Mr. Mike Fisher started his career in education in 1976 at the age of 16 years old as a part-time custodian at the Glendale Elementary School District while he was still a student. He was there until February 1991 as a facility specialist, then moved to Towson Elementary School District as director of facilities. He worked at Paradise Valley, Osborne, and Phoenix L before bringing his expertise to us in July of 2010. He served as a board member for the Arizona Association of School Business Officials, and he has taken great care of our facilities and helped keep transportation rolling. He has a positive attitude and consistently reminds us that what we do for kids. He will surely be missed. Okay, other buddy, can't believe it. Julie Fatch has dedicated her entire adult life to the Littleton Elementary School District. She has been an educator in the Littleton community for the last 33 years. She has taught in many of the schools at our district, including Littleton, Quinton, and Country Place Leadership Academy. She has taught and coached many grade levels. Julie is a true treasure hunter. She gives her time and attention to students both inside and outside of the classroom. She eats lunch regularly with her students in the cafeteria. She spends time with them at recess building relationships. She attends their games and performances well after they have left her class. She's made an immense impact on our community, and we will be forever grateful. Thank you, Julie, for all your hard work and dedication. And another buddy. Charlie Blanton started his career in New Hampshire as a 3rd and 4th grade teacher. He then moved to Phoenix area where he taught 5th and 6th grade in the Levine district before coming to the Littleton School District in 2004. In the Littleton School District, he taught 6th and 7th grade math. He is an exceptional teacher and consistently had the highest scores for his grade or subject across the district. He has also been a master teacher, dean of students, and assistant principal. He is a person of many talents, and that's what brought him to the Fine Arts Academy. He has an interest in the love of piano, choir, music, and drama. Mr. Blanton is retiring from education, but can be proud of the strong bonds he has made with staff and students. We thank Mr. Blanton for his 18 years of service to the Littleton Elementary School District. And that concludes our celebration of our Teacher of the Year and retirees. One more round of applause, please.
Well, on behalf of the board, we wish all the retirees and all of the others to have a great retirement. I'm close myself, so I know how that feeling gets. It's amazing. It's like, okay, what's next? But thank you. It seems odd, right? We give you a piece of paper and that's it. It's like you hear those stories you get to watch. But there's so much thank you from all of the board to thank you for a great service. It's hard to find someone that stays here a long time, that's very dedicated. All of you extremely are appreciated. Someone asked me how long I had been here because we remember each other when we looked a little different and perhaps looked a little younger. So again, thank you very much.
We're recognizing them again at the end of the year.
Perfect. You should be recognized many times, I think, when you get ready to retire. Monetarily, money would be great, just not a possibility. That, there is no call to the public, is that correct? That's right. All right, so that, let the record show that. And at this point, we're going to ask the board to review the consent agenda, as that is an action item. Is there anything that the board wishes to be pulled? Hearing none, I will have a motion to approve or disapprove the consent agenda as it stands.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as stated.
Hearing, thank you. Hearing no other comment, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion will pass unanimously. Thank you. Next, Dr. Haid is going to give a presentation. This is an action item, so it's your turn.
Thank you, Madam President. We have some more people to introduce this evening, which I anticipate will spend many long years in the district of service as well. So the first item under number 10 is an administrator recommendation for the Director of Operations. The administration is recommending Mr. Samuel Garcia as Director of Operations for the 22-23 school year, pending release from contract with Alhambra School District. Mr. Garcia will be joining the Littleton family with a wealth of knowledge in maintenance and construction. He has spent a total of 6 years in Alhambra School District in various positions. Mr. Garcia spent the last year as Director of Maintenance and Construction and 5 years prior as the Maintenance and Construction Coordinator. He also worked in the Avondale School District for a total of 5 years and has 3 years as a maintenance supervisor and 2 years as HVAC lead. I also have to recognize Mr. Fisher that on parting, he left us with a gift because when he was in Paradise Valley, he hired Mr. Garcia there. Some of the things that were said about Mr. Garcia are that he's one of the best I've had the privilege to work with, leads by example. He'll get in there and get the work done with his staff if need be, and he always has the best interest of the campus in mind. So we are asking the board to approve Mr. Garcia as the Director of Operations for the next school year.
Okay, with that, I'll need a motion.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve him and the Director of Operations for the 2022-23 school year.
I'll second.
Any concerns? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call. Or I'll ask for a motion.
Motion and second, you need a vote.
That's what I need, thank you.
Everybody say aye, is that what you need?
Pretty much, thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I myself, thank you, motion passes.
Mrs. Reyes, Mr. Garcia is here this evening if you'd like to call him up for a few words.
Yeah, is the
He
person
is here this evening.
So our
yes.
tradition is to have you come up. I hope your speech is prepared. Perfect.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board. I'm excited to be joining the Littleton community. Thank you for this opportunity. I know I have some big shoes to fill and look forward to the challenge. I also look forward to learning about leaders in learning, caring, and growing. And I'll also do my part to support students, staff, school site administration, and all stakeholders in this effort. Thank you for selecting me for this position.
Thank you very much. We welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Well done.
So at this point, we'll turn.
Madam President, members of the board, the second piece of item 10 is the recommendation for principal at the Fine Arts Academy.
Thank you.
As we've seen, Mr. Blanton, all of us were pretty emotional after 18 years of service here. But we have someone here, Miss Kathy Sylvester, that we are recommending as the principal of Fine Arts Academy for next year. She, I have been told, will be released from her contract with the Dysart Unified District tomorrow evening. She's currently serving as the elementary assistant principal and has been in her current role for the last 5 years. She also served in the same district as a high school assistant principal for 7, and also spent 3 years as a math curriculum specialist with instruction and assessment in Dysart as well. Some of the things that was said about Ms. Sylvester were that, most importantly, Ms. Sylvester brings with her a leadership style that is very positive, One of her many strengths is her dedication to teachers and ensuring that they provide quality instruction within the classroom. Along with distinguishing herself as an energetic, enthusiastic administrator, she continually strives to provide students and staff the best opportunity to challenge themselves, to stretch their knowledge in education. So this evening, we are asking for the board to approve Miss Kathy Sylvester as the principal of the Fine Arts Academy for next year.
Thank you. So at this point, I'll ask for a motion.
I move that the governing board approve the recommended candidate for principal of the Fine Arts Academy for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll have a roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam President, Ms. Sylvester is in the audience this evening if you'd like to call her forward.
So please come forward. Yes, that is a tradition. So have your speech ready.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Freeman, thank you very much. I consider this an honor and a privilege to be a part of your district. From the very first moment that I stepped into the office to apply and to interview, I have been met with nothing but kindness and welcomeness. It's just a very good family feel here. I believe all students can learn, and I'm very excited to fill the obviously very large shoes that I have to fill with the principal that is already retiring. Again, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining our district. Next, we're on to the sale of bond, and are you taking this?
Mr. French.
Okay.
And we have the consultant
On Zoom. All right, so Mr. French, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, President Reyes, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, Littleton community. This evening, we're asking the board to consider a resolution allowing the administration to sell $15 million in authorization from the 2021 bond election. Before we do that, we have invited Mark Reeder back from Stiefel to provide the board with information regarding a bond rating call for the district that happened this morning. Mr. Reeder.
Great. Thank you, Mr. French. Madam President, members of the board, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to Zoom this evening. As you know, we've been working closely with staff in our communications and negotiations with Moody's Investors Service, which is the credit rating agency, as you're aware, that has assigned a credit rating to Littleton Elementary School District. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, we really have some good news here for you. I'd like to do maybe is just read to you, if that would be okay, a few paragraphs of the report and give you the all in all very good news for your district, if that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
We have a press release that just came out. And essentially, the press release says that Moody's Investors Service has assigned a AA3 rating to the Littleton Elementary School in connection with the $15 million bond sale. The AA3 rating reflects the district's participation in the Phoenix metropolitan area economy, resulting in healthy resident income profile, solid full value per capita, and positive pre-COVID enrollment trends. While the corona pandemic detrimentally affected enrollment in fiscal 21, enrollment growth within the district will likely return to its historical trend as development resumes in the near term. While the institutional framework for Arizona school districts is weak, that's just the way the state formula is under state law, as you all know, because we're limited to really what the state allows for the most part. This is offset by the district's strong record of local support for its operating and bond override measures. The rating agencies view that as a significant positive because your district has done such a great job of when you need to go into the community asking for capital monies, asking for some M&O monies is required. So very good measures on that. The district's finances are healthy and in line or stronger than the state and national similar rated peers. Long-term liabilities are modestly elevated, but overall fixed costs are low and manageable. And so we're also benefit from really what they call kind of a lockbox system where the county treasurer collects our property taxes and then our bonds are repaid. So that's a very strong provision, as you know. And we also have a statute that allowed for what we call a statutory lien. So they view both of those, the lockbox and the statutory lien provision of our bond issues, as a significant positive. The positive outlook reflects our view that the district's wealth and income profile, as well as its enrollment trend, will materially improve in the near term. It further reflects the expectation that the district will maintain or improve its financial and leverage metrics. Factors that could lead to an upgrade, obviously going forward, will be vigilant. We'll be communicating with the rating agencies on an annual basis. And factors they indicate in their press release that could lead to an upgrade include continued improvement in income and the wealth profile in your community because of your significant growth, and they view that as a positive because allows for the repayment, of course, of taxes. Resumed enrollment growth, did a very good job of managing your way through COVID. Factors that could lead to a downgrade, significant increases in leverage from debt or retirement liabilities. So we'll always make sure that we manage that for the district. If the district would have a material weakening of the district's financial position, which we don't anticipate, as you know, or if the district got into a situation of a negative enrollment trend. So, Madam President, members of the board, congratulations on your AA3 positive outlook, and that was an upgrade from what they call a stable outlook for the reasons that I articulated in the press release. So we wanted to share what we believe to be very good news for the district in anticipation of our bond sale next week. And I'm glad to answer any questions. And we also have Paul Gales on the phone, your bond attorney, who drafted the resolution in front of you. So with that, I'm glad to entertain any questions of the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there questions? And thank you for bringing us the information. AAA is very good, so we appreciate it, and I think that has a lot to do with how we manage our finances, our conservative approach to what we, while some may not agree with it, but has served us well, and I think this is a good reference point to that. So we have no questions, it sounds like, so with that, I'll need a motion. Yes.
I'll move that the governing board approve the presented resolution providing for all matters relating to the sale and issuance of school improvement bonds of the district, including delegation to the superintendent and the chief operating officer for the district to determine certain matters related thereunto.
Thank you. I'll need a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion will pass. Thank you. So, Mr. French, is item 13 an action item, or was, okay, yes?
Madam President, item 12 is a public
So
hearing.
12. So at this point, I'll let you conduct the public hearing.
Thank you. Madam President Reyes, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, Littleton community, this evening we will be discussing the fiscal year 21-22 budget revision number 2. ASRS 15905 provides guidance to school districts on revising expenditure budgets. In general, all districts that revise their fiscal year 22 adopted budget, including revisions to the general budget limit and M&O funds budget or classroom site fund budget, as allowed by statute, must have revisions completed and approved at a governing board meeting before May 15th. I'm bringing much better news for the budget revision than at this time last year. The district experienced moderate and gradual growth in average daily membership, or ADM, in fiscal year 22, increasing by 45.37 ADM from fiscal year 21. But much of the increase in the M&O budget was from carry forward of funds from fiscal year 21. The first revision completed by the district had an M&O budget of $39,066,126. The new M&O budget found on page 1 of your attachment is $39,768,299, an increase of $702,173. At this point in the year, administration is projecting a carry forward into the next year of approximately 5% of that, and will bring the final carry forward information to the board at the October meeting when we review the annual financial report. With this budget revision, I did want to let the board know all additional funds have been aligned with expenses and distributed budgets in each category as well as appropriate function. There's also good news with the district additional assistance, DAA, or as we know it also as capital, for this budget revision. The original budget, capital budget for the district was $5,946,653, and carry forward from fiscal year 21 has moved the budget up to $7.275 million, an increase of $1.3 million. This amount can be found on page 4 of the budget form in your attachment. The main reason for this increase was the utilization of the ESSER funds was taking place of the capital funds. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board or the community.
Hearing no questions from the community, I will ask for questions from the board. Hearing no questions from the board, I'll ask for a motion. Oh. All right, so we are closing the hearing at 6:52. At this point, we're going back into open session and asking for a motion on the revision of the budget. Do I have a motion?
I recommend the adoption of the revised expenditure budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 and the authorization of expenditures in the M&O section in excess of any subsection, provided all expenditures do not exceed the total budget.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion will pass. Thank you. At this point, Dr. Friedman, you're giving informational only on instructional services.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have been in touch with one of the consultant groups that we talked to, and they are in different offices around the country, and I think even coming in on Zoom tonight from the East Coast, which is a different time zone, and we really appreciate their flexibility. I've reviewed some of the questions that the board had with them, and what I would like to do is basically, if we could bring them up on Zoom. They're not in the Zoom meeting yet? Oh my gosh. Well, that's a problem.
Well, do we want to move the agenda around with the permission of the board and come back to them?
Madam President, if you would please entertain an exception, I think that'd be helpful. And we did spend some time coordinating with them. Are you?
Everything is ready, yes.
Okay.
So if there's,
The time zones may have something to do with this, but, you know, they were prepared to coordinate if we could. There's no reason why we couldn't move that item on the agenda since they're participating electronically. It should be fine.
okay.
I
Is there any-
apologize for that.
No problem. Is there any concern with moving that item? So at this point, we'll move forward with item 15 and come back to 14 as the individuals join us on Zoom. Item number 15 is a possible action. Dr. Freeman.
Madam President, members of the board, we found out through our work with the city of Avondale that impact fees for construction were going to be far higher than we anticipated. And we got a hold of city staff and questioned some of those. Essentially, what we've heard from them is we're being treated like any developer. They have a series of equations that they run on square feet and number of hookups and those kind of things. But some of these fees seem a reach to our staff to apply to the construction of an elementary school. So we asked if there was any way to appeal or to have them looked at and reconsidered. What essentially has happened with the staff is they've said that's their formula and they treat everybody the same. We found out from city manager staff last week there is a way to write a form of appeal by a letter to the city manager. The total of the fees so far, that's without any additional fees for inspections, is over $411,000. So let me pull that paper out because we're out of sequence a little. $411,651. What we did then is we broke that down by looking at the capacity of the school and the number of students per home, and estimated that to be an impact of about $130 per household residence that we would be absorbing or pass along in impact fees from this point forward for any kind of residence that were going to be built in Avondale. We're not really ready to present a recommendation to the board to add an impact fee, though if we can't negotiate anything else with the city, that might be prudent to pass that along to the developers. Since we're not a developer, we're essentially a subdivision of the state government. One of the ideas that I've put together, and what I want to do is send that letter to the city manager after discussion of the board this evening, for instance, plan review fees and those kind of things seem like a pretty normal cost. There are some special fees for plumbing and sewer and hookup and those kind of things that I think we may have some impact by employees coming into the community. But otherwise, kids and families are using the same amount of water whether they're at the school or at the house. So I think there ought to be room for some leeway from the city on those fees. And the one that I found most objectionable was a traffic impact fee, because we've been working with Brookfield, who's developing Alomar, and they've built all the roads. And what I understand is, though I don't have access to their agreement, is that, for instance, they don't pay traffic impact fees if they build the road. If the road's already built, I don't know why we're paying a traffic impact fee. In my view, that doesn't seem like a real reasonable thing to pass along, except that is how their formula works. So staff hasn't picked on us at all. They've taken whatever's been adopted as their impact fees and development and written it all up. They went back and looked at it for me to make sure there weren't any errors. There aren't any errors in what they've produced. It's just what they do. And what I would like to do on behalf of the taxpayers in the community and the school district is send a letter to the acting city manager asking for some consideration or relief. But I want to make sure that I'm in line with the thinking of the governing board before I do that on my own.
So with that, I'll open it up for thoughts, comments. Amy?
I have one question. Thank you. So the last school we built was fine arts, and if I remember, that was in Phoenix, and that's why we didn't have something like this come up.
That's correct.
And what was the last school we built that was in Avondale?
Estrella Vista.
Okay, and that was a while ago, and so I'm assuming the impact change has changed dramatically from then that we can tell?
So yes, the square footage is roughly similar. the schools are built to the same capacity. There's a little less square footage at Alomar because we have separated some of the buildings, which reduces the amount of hallway space. So the amount of square foot plant under roof is a little less, but the capacity for the school is the same. So services, amenities, and design are the same. The cost of everything has gone up. We built Estrella Vista in 2008, and then we built Tres Rios in 2009 in the city of Phoenix. Then we had the mortgage crisis and everything. The next school we built was Fine Arts. So what we anticipated was a budget more along the lines of 200,000 than over 400,000. And I think that would be a fair negotiating target as far as an appeal to the city to look at something like about half of what those fees are. This is an administrative review. It would be a letter that goes to the city manager, not to city council or anything on their agenda as of yet. And so I think we need to give staff an opportunity, city staff an opportunity to respond to whatever the board would like to see us do. Obviously, $412,000 is a lot of money that could be going to programming kids at the school as opposed to fees. But
So speaking as myself, I would really appreciate you reaching out to city staff and looking at that. Any money that we don't spend on this, we spend it on things in the classroom that best benefit the students. So I am personally completely okay with you reaching out and writing that letter.
I agree with Ms. Alchenek.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
I would agree as well. The only other addition I might add to it, Dr. Freeman, is that staff gets out and looks at the place. If they've not been physically down there, I'm sorry to say that when I've had some talk with some of the other staff there at City Hall, they take what's on the piece of paper and do their little mechanical work on it and spit out the numbers. And when you ask them to go down and look at the place, they say, oh, well, maybe we can evaluate this and come up with a little bit more or a little bit better. But if they go down there and see, in fact, that the roads are in and some of these other things in, we can question those things. But I think it's just a matter of inviting them to come down and actually see what needs to be done there, get their eyes on the ground, feet on the ground, if you will, and see what's there. And the other thought would be, forgot it here. But anyway, get them down there and look at it. Oh, the square footage of the new school. Are they using the one what we originally gave them, or is it the new updated version, whatever square feet that is? We need to reevaluate and see what they've got.
yeah, they have the most current most current plans and plans under review. And we have right now permission to move ahead with our civil work, which is building up all the landscape. So the retention areas, the pad, we can actually put in the subfloor, dig the footers, put in the rebar steel reinforcement for the footers, but we need to get those inspected and tagged before we pour concrete. So we still have some time to work. And what my original appeal was to the city manager, who sent it down to staff, is exactly what you said, is the staff are down there on the first floor and they're working their formulas and their pieces of paper, and they don't really get up and walk around and look and talk to people. But I think the city manager and the people we work with upstairs do get out and about, and if we don't appeal, they'll just use the formula. So if we do appeal, we have a chance maybe to use some of that money to better use for helping kids in program.
So my take on it is a little bit larger than this. I'm all for you going, and 411,000, I mean, when the roads are in, the roads are great. That just doesn't seem, and the fact that it's taking you to write a letter to ask for how to do an appeal, to me is amazing in itself, right? You would think at that point, you've had a conversation, let's sit down together and let's talk about it. Having to write an appeal to me is probably not acceptable, but I understand that's the process. So definitely write the letter. But the bigger issue is, if you look at Phoenix and you look at Tres Rios, Phoenix didn't charge us those fees, right? And if you look at some of the surrounding districts, which we did kind of take a look at, Avondale is way out of line if you compare it to Goodyear and some of the others that we've called. So I think this is, first let's get this, and then this is a bigger issue that maybe, if necessary, we go to council and just present the facts once we have enough information. And I'm certainly on board with that once we talk about how we are competitive or lack of competitive for public education in terms of fees. That's where the problem lies, and then we wouldn't have to be appealing and doing all that. But certainly $411,000, that's a lot of money. That's almost $500,000 by the time we're all done. And that's I understand things cost money, but again, we're talking about money that could be spent for children that'll lead this community, right? That's what we're doing. So I definitely support it. Let me know. If you're going to if we end up talking to council, I know myself, I'm sure some of the board members are shaking their head. They would be in support of it as well. So we have your back on that one, and we'll go to bat for you if you need it. That's not acceptable. So thank you very much.
Yeah, Madam President, I mean, everybody on the board's aware of how hard we had to work just to make the budget on the construction for this. And I kind of feel like we, the board, have a responsibility to appeal it for the best use of this taxpayers' funds in this case. And I was able to talk at the bowling event that we mentioned in our early reports to some of the people who were there, who were sponsors of lanes or in the contracting business, who told me about several cities who don't charge. Tolleson doesn't charge at all, and several other cities don't. So I'm in the process right now of collecting and verifying that data so I can put it in the letter and be authoritative about it, not just I heard at a bowling alley.
Thank you.
Well, still could be good authority.
Thank you for doing that.
You know, we don't want to be complainers. We don't want to be hard to deal with. And if we can help Avondale be a better city that's more responsive to its citizens, then I think that's a role we have to play too. And we'll see what this next step takes. If there's other further action that I need to have, voted on, acted on by the board, we'll bring that back at the June meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson?
I'd just like to second what you had to say. It's not only this school, don't we have properties for 2 additional schools sometime in the future? 3 more, and if the precedence is set now to either lower or reduce or reevaluate or whatever, we're setting it for the future, and that's what we need to do, is make sure that not only this one, but those other schools in the future are.
Well, not only, what if it's not R3? What if it's Avondale L's building 2 more? I mean, this could be very good for all educational institutes. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. So thank you for doing your homework. Let us know how we can support you. And then I'd be curious, once you get all your data collected, what it looks like with surrounding districts and stuff, because that's just interesting in general. So thank you for doing that.
If it's all right with the board, I mean, I'll run over that letter with you before I send it out, because I think I'm writing it on behalf of the district to make sure that you're okay with it.
I don't think anyone has an objection. No, so please, thank you. All right, so at this point then, we're going to move on to Dr. Haid, talking about classroom stipend. I'm sorry?
Superintendent, I'm sorry. So we had a bit of change of plans. Our presenter recall plan is not feeling well.
Okay,
However, they have another one who is ready and is soon meeting.
okay.
Do I know who that is?
And that would be
Rajiv instead of Colin?
So just in fairness, are we going back then? We're going to push back into the agenda back to item 14, correct?
I'm taking one item out of order now.
Okay, so we're going back to item 14, and we'll put it back in order when we get back. And Dr. Freeman, are you comfortable with the presentation, since you really have not had an opportunity to speak to this person?
Madam President, members of the board, this group functions as an education advocate team. They've worked in multiple cities, and when I met with them about the questions the board had, I met with probably primarily Colin and Razim, and I think Razim is who is going to be on the call. I understand. I will ask him to introduce himself in his role, but I think he is either the CEO or the president of the nonprofit. And we'll ask him to speak a little bit to his work, and then his group's work, and then to your questions.
So just for clarity, this is regarding that potential IPP we were talking about for, is that what this is about?
Madam President and members of the board, to refresh your memory, the presentation that Dr. Haid made last week was about the potential for issuing an RFP for a scope of work for instructional services.
Right, okay.
And our scope of work, we wanted to include responders that worked with kids that had varied levels of need and opportunity, and bring in a nonprofit for support, so that essentially we could leapfrog ahead of some legacy costs and implementation and build on the work of other people to have a strong implementation. And so this is an example of a nonprofit partner that we might be able to bring to the table and some of their work. What I told them was the board had some uncertainty about going first with an innovation like this, and that I had told you that these had happened in other places, other states. Arizona is a particularly challenging situation because of our funding and support level, and why we thought the nonprofit was important. So they do plan to address the dialogue you had at your last meeting.
Thank you. So with that, we'll get started.
There we go.
Wonderful.
We can hear you.
Thank you so much. Madam President, members of the Littleton Board, Superintendent, thank you so much for having me. My name is Rajiv Bajaj, and I lead an organization called Katamba. We are an education support organization with a mission to improve learning and life outcomes for students across the country, particularly for our most needy students. And if you wouldn't mind, I might share my screen with a little bit of background. Excited to be here tonight to be able to share a little bit about what we've learned in our work across the country, working in this construct of third-party providers, or partnership schools, as we like to call them, and excited to engage with you all, answer questions, share some of the things we've learned along the way, and look forward to the dialogue. Superintendent, okay if I share my screen? Can folks see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Wonderful. Again, my name is Rajiv Bajaj. I lead an organization called Katamba. I am a former fourth grade teacher, have done work in school districts across the country, believe deeply in the promise of public education, and sit here as a product of a mix of public schools, and believe deeply in educational equity, and like many of you, believe talent is equitably distributed, but sometimes opportunity is not. And so wanted to share a little bit tonight about partnership schools and this construct that the superintendent was laying out in terms of third-party providers and instructional support set of services. And again, folks, I'm not able to see you, so please feel free to stop me as I go through this. My goal here is to share some of the work we've seen across the country that is similar to this from a partnership construct, what's worked on that front, what questions folks have had, and then really interested in engaging with you all and questions you may have as you're exploring this really, what we think is a high potential innovation, particularly in serving our most vulnerable students. So a quick scan across the nation, partnership schools, which just for a second, as I define those, these are schools that serve district students that that remain in the district catchment on district roles, and partner with a nonprofit support organization, either for a thematic model or a specific focus area, and particularly have instructional and pedagogical background in serving our most vulnerable students. That's the sort of concept around a partnership model. They have often a set of teaching and learning strategies, a set of culture and support models that can really support student success and well-being. And those organizations partner with school districts to to work with the individual school and offer that high quality learning opportunity to students in that community. And so we often call this model kind of a third way. It's not the traditional district catchment. It's not necessarily a charter model. It really is the best of what the support organization can bring. It starts with the needs of students in that school and that community and builds a model from there. And so we've seen these models across the country in a variety of different forms, in Denver, Colorado, some work in Los Angeles, California. Indianapolis Public Schools does a lot of this work. They call their model the innovation schools. In Florida, they're called Schools of Hope. In New Jersey, we called them Renaissance schools. Again, all with that same model of partnership between the partner and the district to best serve the students and to build on the capabilities of the existing district and the partner to bring to bear a high quality learning opportunity. So, so that work has really this work has really flourished across the country in a variety of different ways. In a couple of the states where I'm pointing out, there's been some enabling legislation that has supported with resources or other in-kind services, a set of support to enable the schools to be successful. In Texas, there's something called Senate Bill 1882 that provides resources in a way that the district and partner can ensure that the school is meeting student need. And as we have seen this work sort of unfold, it's often the highest potential when the district and the nonprofit partner really work together to understand the individual needs of students, to design the program and supports in a way that makes sense, and to build, as the superintendent says, from the best that the support provider or the partner may have. And I'll give you a couple of specific examples just to put a little meat on the bone here to ensure we're meeting the needs of individual students in those schools. So a couple of examples, I'm highlighting a specific district in Texas, Midland, Texas, and two of the models that have emerged as partnership or TPP options. One is a Young Women's Leadership Academy. This is a school that is serving all girls and has a STEM model, and the partner there is a group called Young Women's Leadership. They've done great work as a nonprofit support organization in the state of Texas, and they are now the partner for this school and have really built a high quality learning model for young women in Midland to access this. And this is a school that is now highly sought after, is getting significant academic outcomes, is creating lots of opportunities for students in the community, and is really, I think, an example of when these things go well, the partnership between the district and the nonprofit partner. So that's Young Women's Leadership. A quick beat on Sam Houston College Prep. This was a school that was in the traditional district setting, had some significant need, and from an academic achievement perspective was not necessarily meeting the mark. They were able to partner with a nonprofit organization focused on college and career ready, particularly a focus on early literacy and individualized instruction. Sam Houston College Prep now is again sort of improving on an academic basis, as well as really sought after as we think about parents and families making choices in terms of what works best for their kids. This is a program that's now highly sought after in Midland and is serving a very high need community and population in the district. So those are a couple of examples. Again, as I think about sort of lessons learned here, obviously this starts with deep conversation, and I applaud the board for really exploring this innovative partnership concept and really building on that engagement into identifying the set of potential providers that really meet community need, and sort of identifying what are the things or the sort of opportunities that families and students are asking for in our community, and what might that look like as we partner. The partner usually, we have found, needs to demonstrate a strong track record with serving our most vulnerable students. And that could be a specific special population. It could be students experiencing poverty. That can be described a variety of ways, but providers with a track record that really have shown success with a specific population end up being the ones that are more successful in this model. And then it's really about this partnership concept, this idea of creating clear expectations, both on the partner and provider side, as well as with the district. What are our shared outcomes and goals that we seek? What does that look like as it relates to supports the district will continue to provide? What are the expectations of the partner in terms of meeting student need? And so that clarity of expectation and collaborative set of work really we have seen has defined high quality partnerships as we've seen them in the field. So let me pause there. Excited to hear your questions and thoughts and happy to jump in wherever would be most helpful.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to the board for questions. Amy, do you have any?
I need a moment.
Okay, no problem. It's a lot to process. I was thinking the same thing. Okay, Mr. Nielsen?
I guess just one question I might have, that community engagement. I know this is a school down there where there is a community that's going to be there, be whatever kind of community that is. I don't know, they're building it for millennials or they're building it for whatever children. What happens if some of those children decide from the other parts of the district that they want to come and participate that? We would bus them down there. So it's not right in the community of Alomar, which might be there, but they may come from Littleton, my little area, whatever it might be, and go down there. The community expands. Does it become, again, the community of the school or the community of Alomar, whatever it might be?
Madam President, Mr. Nielsen, Raziz, I think, I think in this regard, since we have to go through procurement, what happens when an RFP goes out, it comes back to an evaluation team. And so the community in this case is the school district, not just the Alomar development, because we're an open choice district. So I think it would be good if members from that community participated. They probably would have maybe a higher level of interest in participating. But there's no reason why we can't include community members in the evaluation of respondents in the RFP. And certainly before we would release it, we would go over the scope, which is what we're asking people to respond to with the board, because this isn't just like buying any other kind of piece of capital equipment. This is pretty innovative for the school district. So I think one would be one part of the community review as you as members representing the community, making sure we're putting the right thing out. And then the other would be, if you want to have a community involvement in the review, is letting community into that. So that is a way that we could increase that engagement. And then I think the other, as far as clearly defining expectations, is again in the review of the scope. And there's a lot of components to that. So we've had one legal counsel review on what needs to be in it, but we haven't sent any document for legal review until we're sure the board wants to move forward.
Thank
Yes,
you.
and then sorry, go ahead.
So this is Kathy. I have some questions, and if they're not relevant, please feel free. I'm trying to wrap my head around this whole concept, and I'm just not there, because it is very different than some presentations I've heard. So you use the word vulnerable students a lot. I've heard that defined in your presentation several times. So I'm not sure I understand what you may consider vulnerable. And if your programs are highly successful, and the track record is with vulnerable students, is your program geared for that type of school or community? And if it is, what happens to perhaps children that, based on whatever definition you're applying, that may not be vulnerable? How do they also become successful? I'm not sure I understand that. So I'll give you a chance, if you would, to please help me. Sure.
Yes, ma'am. I was speaking to partners that might come forward through the process that the superintendent's describing. So I think you would open this RFP to a set of potential partners that serve a wide definition of potential students. I was describing that particularly where we've seen partnership models successfully implemented, those partners have a track record working with what I would call a broad definition of vulnerable students, whether that be students with special needs, students experiencing homelessness, students with that may be newcomers to the country or in a dual language setting. My definition was meant to just describe sort of what we think is really important in selecting a type of partner in terms of that partner having a set of capabilities, particularly as it relates to students that are most in need. So it was more of a broad comment on that front. So I hope that clarifies.
Thank you. And then I had I think the presentation said similar student population. Is that something we write inside our RFP, what our population looks like? Yes, okay. I see you nodding your head. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I think, from that perspective, describing the demographics and needs of the community, I think, would be something that would be helpful for partners to understand as they would propose potential partnership models. And then this point about community engagement, I think the superintendent is exactly right as it relates to the RFP and selection process and engaging community, which I think is a great thought. And in addition, working with community as the partnership design happens to ensure there's meaningful engagement on the path to that TPP, that program being launched at a specific school site, so that there's good engagement throughout. And so much of the work that my organization has done along the way is really supporting that planning and development so that the partners can successfully launch this important and innovative work.
Thank you. And then how do you see a school venting someone for success? So how if you're not well versed in it, you're doing your RFP, you hope you've covered everything, but how do you vent for success? What are we looking at when we're doing that?
It's such a great question. I think, in the vetting process, to me, track record, a demonstrated track record of the success, which to me, this is one guy's opinion, but I think we often, obviously, quantitative data, whether it be test scores or other, is one part of that. But I personally seek to understand a rich portrait of how that partner is creating student success in that partnership school. And so that demonstrated track record could come in the form of quantitative data. It also could come in the form of actually, and I welcome if this is something after you put out the RFP that would be helpful if you'd like to go visit some schools and see, often seeing what a successful model looks like and understanding what the rigor and the opportunities look like is often helpful. Often sort of seeing and vetting from that perspective is something that we have seen communities that have taken this on actually go and visit, whether it be a Midland or elsewhere, what that successful model looks like in action and speak to the practitioners. So there are a variety of ways that on the vetting side that I think start with a rich portrait, quantitative and qualitative data of a track record of success and not just aggregate data, really to this point. And again, you're right. I do say vulnerable students a lot because I think, as a person and as an organization, we've committed our work to ensuring that those most vulnerable students are served, and we don't let any kids slip through the cracks. And I know I'm preaching to the converted on this board in terms of your commitment to all students. And so from that perspective, that track record of success in the form of quantitative and qualitative data, and then really understanding and seeing some of this could also be another part of that vetting if it was appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Board members, so Amy?
Okay, so forgive me if you've already said this, and there's just been a lot said to me today, and I may not have caught it all. In your opinion, why would a nonprofit be interested in doing this in Arizona if with our finance laws, it is so difficult. And I know that you can't speak for every organization, but I'm just thinking, if it's not been done yet or looked into, what do you think a nonprofit would see Arizona and say, yes, that's where I want to go?
I mean, my view on this is sort of two-part. One is again, this is it's a broad point I'm making. I think mission-aligned nonprofits that are thinking about and have a similar mission of serving students, and particularly have programmatic expertise, I think are looking to expand their impact. And so where they can, in a construct like this, serve kids directly, partnering with the school district, I think from their perspective, this is really, I'm using an example, a partner may do after-school programs, but doesn't necessarily see kiddos for 6 hours and 20 minutes a day. And so if I'm a nonprofit leader and my mission is to serve a specific student population, or or I'm deeply versed in STEM or in the arts or whatever the specific programmatic area might be, my ability to expand my impact is central to that. So if districts are inviting me in to be a central part of what that delivery looks like for kids every day, I think we have seen that those nonprofits are excited about actually engaging in that way, because the mission alignment is central to what they're trying to do, and being able to serve kids in that way, it's a higher dosage of what they're doing in a way that can actually lead to the outcomes we all seek in terms of better life outcomes for kids. So I would say that's sort of the central part of that. I hear you on the challenging finances, et cetera. I would say on that score, the ability to bring creative staffing models to bear, to think about programmatic opportunities and other ways to ensure that all kids are being served is another thing we've seen partners bring in. So blending the best innovation of what's happening in the district with some of the partners' ideas and models sometimes creates a really rising tide on a variety of fronts. And that could be on things like digital learning, it could be on the specific programmatic area, it could be on strategic staffing in ways. We've seen lots of interesting byproducts of this kind of collaborative model.
Thank you. And then one of my other questions is, what is the longest running partnership program that you know of?
It's a great question. I would say the Sky partnerships in Spring Branch, Texas, in the Houston area are probably the longest. Those are, I want to say, close to a decade at this point. Okay. I want to say somewhere in that zone, maybe longer, but that sort of zone. The earliest partnership I have seen or done research on were some partnerships in the early 90s in Washington, D.C. That started down this path in terms of identifying partners with thematic focus and inviting them into the school district. I personally worked closely on launching similar partnership models after I was an educator in New York City public schools. I went on into the administration, into the Department of Education. We launched almost 200 new small schools that were thematic and had similar partnership models. And that was in the early 2000s. So this work has been sort of around in some shape or form for a while. And I would say, this partnership model, as we're sort of describing the broad contours, probably a decade or 15 years on.
And then in what you know of, in one of the schools that you showed as an example, it was a current school that the district, I assume, went in and started this partnership school. What was the reaction of the staff of the district to know that we're having another group come in and take over? Because I'm currently a teacher, and I'm just a little concerned on how our current teachers are going to feel if, as a board, we take on a nonprofit to staff a school, though I understand we're having trouble finding staff in general, but I'm just really concerned on how this looks on to the community and to our current teachers. So do you know, or
Yes,
What was the
ma'am.
reaction?
Yeah, and again, this is where I do feel this work is really a third way, where it is not about the term takeover or handover, et cetera, is really not a part of this partnership structure. And so in that way, the the staffing, I'll give an example from New York City. We had an interview process where we interviewed all existing staff in school buildings where these new partnership models were taking place. And it ended up being a hybrid of some new staff, some existing staff, really identifying the best talent to support the specific model that was going forward. And so I really do see this as a collaborative process on that front, and bringing some of the strategic staffing components to bear, identifying what talents needed to support potentially the specific model. But it's by no means a sort of handover or takeover, any of that that sort of approach or sort of external management kind of construct. It really is a collaborative partnership with the district in a way that blends those. It's not to say that there wouldn't be new talent that comes in, but it really is what's best for the school community and the model that we're trying to serve kids with. And that's sort of the centering set of questions. It's not dropping in a model per se.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah? Okay. Mr. Nielsen? I just have a few more. Again, this is Kathy. Amy asked one about how is the partnership received by teachers, and you've answered that. But how does the community see a partnership that may be different people? One thing you hear a lot from communities, they like stability in teachers because they send their kindergarten, then they send their third, and then they send their fifth, and they want to know if so-and-so is still there. How is that received? And does partnerships, your turnover in that staff model must happen as much as anywhere else. So address that, please.
Sure. So in terms of community reaction to partnerships, again, this through line of community engagement and really identifying what are the sets of learning opportunities that families and kids are looking for really drive this process. And so again, I see this as the district hearing and connecting with community and understanding what those needs are and identifying partners to meet those needs. And so from that perspective, for example, in the Young Women's Leadership Academy, I think it's one of the most highly sought after schools in the district because there was such a need for a STEM program, particularly focused on young women, and creating those opportunities. And you saw not only demand through the community engagement process, you've now seen latent demand where families are saying, well, I really want my child to be a part of that. That's a high quality learning opportunity that's creating an opportunity that didn't exist in the district prior. And so this idea of honoring what the wants and needs of what the community is asking for is very much a part of this process, and continuing that dialogue. That's not just to get over the finish line on a partnership. That's an ongoing part of this. So I see this as much envision it as much as you all are an open choice district, but I would see it like the other diverse set of school options you have. This would be just another option that families would access. They're all Littleton kids. They're all Littleton schools. They all support what you all are trying to do from an education mission perspective.
Okay, two more questions. One, define for me what your definition of partnership is. You use that word a lot. What's a partnership look? Do you go out and these partnerships are created first and then you bring these partnerships to the school? What does that look like?
Yes, in this case, I'm using partnership and third-party provider pretty interchangeably. So the RFP process that the superintendent's outlining would would be the process by which you'd enter into a partnership agreement, call it a performance contract or a contract that would be for those instructional services and supports. It would lay out the expectations for the partner and for the district, and it would. I have seen, as we've done this work, that it's important to have a set of shared expectations and goals, performance metrics for what we expect the partner to accomplish over the period of time that the third-party provider / partner is engaged with the district. So, so I'm using that interchangeably. I don't know if that helps clarify. So that is, think of it as the partnership or third-party provider is it would basically go through a performance contracting or partnership contracting exercise that would come out of the RFP.
Yeah, thank you. That's a little bit clearer. One last question, which I did kind of ask, but I didn't hear the answer, is turnover in staff. So go back to asking that question. What's your turnover in terms of one of my specialties? How often do teachers stay in those specialties?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't have the numbers offhand in terms of some of the partnership models that I would say that it probably works out to the district average in general terms. In some of the specific Midland cases, they've been able to retain their teachers, and the district has been doing some specific things as it relates to creating some additional incentives as well that the partners are also benefiting from in different ways, or building their own sort of incentive structures there, because as we all know, there's sort of a talent shortage nationwide. But in general terms, I actually think on the specialty question, the specialty teachers tend to actually stay, I think, a little bit longer because they're embedded in the academic model. And often, you know, if I have a specific specialty in that place, I may not be able to transfer from the partner school to a comprehensive high school, let's say, in the district. So some of the specialty teachers I actually think might stay on over a longer period of time, and as we've seen, are often the anchor of some of the partnership models I'm talking about.
So that might be a question if we visit these. That might be a question we ask those schools, what the retention component is, because if it moves a lot, it makes you wonder. It raises a different set of issues. So thank you for answering that. Mr. Nielsen, you had one more?
I had one last one there. Just that caught my attention is the one thing you said right there about family involvement. That's what we're always after. In some of these partnerships you've seen, do you find parents get involved more frequently, less frequently, siblings, brothers and sisters? How does that interact? Because I think that's one of the things that we are concerned with here is, when parents are involved with it, the education goes better, and when they're not, they drag along.
Yep. Yes, sir. Great question. I have found that the majority of partners that we have seen have an intentional process by which they're engaging families, and often that is a place of deep collaboration with the district. So again, in this idea of sort of innovation and a rising tide lifting all boats, the partner is engaged in deep family engagement, and often sometimes we have seen the districts actually and the partners share effective practices. What's working for you on this front? Hey, we're engaging in this way with specific things because we're a STEM school and doing something interesting in terms of engaging kids on robotics or whatever the topic might be. Are there analogs and things that we could be doing in our other school options in the community, or are there things we're doing that from an engagement perspective that could be leveraged district-wide? So again, I see these partnerships as being hopefully a catalyst and innovation hub, because where there are effective practices, whether the district's doing something great that the partner should learn from, or if the partner is doing something great that the district should learn from, that sort of bidirectional partnership really, I think, has been beneficial. And so that's where we've seen it be most effective. And community engagement or family engagement is one of those places.
Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much for the presentation. Dr. Freeman, did you have anything else?
Yeah, thanks for jumping on, Regine. Really appreciate your contributions. I have to take responsibility a little bit for the the disadvantaged learner dialogue, and that comes from the fact that when we had numbers pre-pandemic, 66% of our kids are on free lunch, another 12 on reduced. That means generally that those kids grow up with fewer opportunities than parents with more income, and it usually correlates to standardized test scores because they don't have the same growth, exposure, and opportunities. So disadvantage usually means economic, and with an economic disadvantage comes fewer opportunities for you to have growing up. That's a real life statistic for the Littleton School District. We don't want a partner like some of the charters that you see who simply push people out when they're not doing well. We want any child in Littleton, regardless of the economic circumstance of their family, to be able to access a prep academy program to raise up their achievement and our expectations for them. So we don't want somebody who comes in and says their strategy is if you can't cut it, find another school. You have to have proven that you can work with kids of a broad and diverse range of economic backgrounds and had success with them. Or there's no point in bringing them to Littleton because those are our kids and our families right now. So I gave them that. That's the demographics we have. I want to be able to take kids of all incomes and all colors, put them in an academy where they can be accelerated and achieve at levels that are different than anything else that we've had to offer before. I want the same thing for all the kids in all the academies, that if you have a high interest in the arts, maybe you're not going to score higher than everybody else in math, but you have the potential to have a great career and a great income and a great family to be a kid at Hope who performs in the arts. And so all of these schools are intended to be different and appeal to people in different ways. But that's how we would describe our community. Those are the demographics and the numbers and the statistics. So I'm responsible for feeding that in. I'm also responsible for saying that if we have partners, I see two kinds of partners potentially out there. Partners who are in education for profit and partners who are in education for kids. And so it is the latter that I want to attract to the school district, not the ones that are in it for profit. And I think if you look around, you can kind of tell, you know, who they are as well as I can. Dr. Haid in the last presentation already said, look, we're purchasing third-party services for lots of things where we can't find help. That time has come. I was talking last weekend to a friend who retired and took a job helping out in Gila Bend. In Gila Bend, a lot of the ELL students there are not just Spanish speakers. Their native language is Tohono O'odham. They are learning to read aloud in English because that's the test they have to take, and they are reading aloud beautifully in Filipino accent English because that's where they have to go to get teachers. That's what's happening in Arizona. If you want to keep class size reasonable, you've got to go find teachers, and people are going all over the world to find people to work and teach today. So we have 50 positions open. We should be a third of that in May. I mean, this is going to, recruiting teachers is tough now. A year from now, if the legislature doesn't respond in a way that positively supports the base funding level and teacher salaries, the working conditions are almost to the point where it's impossible for them to live. I mean, we desperately need help from policymakers, but we also desperately need to advocate for ourselves and our kids and be innovative. And this is an idea to attract talent from around the country for people who want to make a difference for those kind of kids to be attracted to us because we're going to innovate. And there's no promise, but I can promise that doing nothing is not going to be better. And so this is the best idea we have going forward. And I think all of the questions are good. Obviously, if you're going to be uncomfortable with moving into this kind of innovation, if you want to go to Midland, Texas, there's a direct flight, but I don't think it's every day. It's not that big of a city. Um, and we might have to go to Mesa to catch it. No, I think the Southwest. But we could do that and, walk around and get an idea for what that's like. But what you saw was multiple cities, multiple states, and Texas has, they have an enabling legislation. What we have here in Arizona is districts used to be able to do charters, and the boards, had say over what happened there. And when districts started to do it, our legislature took it away. So if you want to put together a partnership that's that innovative, you have to do it differently. And that's why we spent so much time with lawyers trying to figure out how to make this work and still be able to have a collaborative relationship. But teachers aren't going to be looked at, Ms. Sausnick, as I'm being replaced by outside person. It's going to be teachers from India or the Philippines working next to me or at that school, not taking a job away from anyone. There's nobody's job to be taken away in education in Arizona or largely the United States, because in this kind of extreme and populist era of politics that we live in, education has been taking a beating quite a bit. And the same thing has happened in nursing. There's a huge shortage, exodus of people from that field. They were beaten up for the last 2 years while they were trying to save people's lives. Like, people are retiring from nursing too. There's going to be a huge backlog of trying to spool up workforce and pipeline for positions in in those medical fields because of the working conditions that have happened over the last couple years. We are all reaching for pipeline to the profession, preparation, alternative routes, everything we can do to keep adults in service of the kids that we're responsible for. So, I know this is a stretch, and I hope the presentation tonight was helpful a little bit in that, we're not the first ones and we're not alone. Our context is unique, and the things that we would be concerned about in Arizona would be unique compared to other states. But I truly believe we're going to need to innovate in staffing. We're going to try to put forward a proposal where, I think we said at the last meeting, where we can actually help develop teachers from early on through our own Littleton Teacher Academy or University, or I'm not sure what it's called. Leaving no stone unturned in ways that we can bring talent to bear on the needs of our kids to learn and grow. Does that answer your question?
Well, I can tell you're passionate about it, and I think we all appreciate that passion. On the opposite side, we would be one of the first schools to bring it. Doesn't mean that's bad or good, right? Yep, so in Arizona, we'll be looked at. So our goal is to make it absolutely the most successful so that we will be looked at as a program that, puts us on the map. We don't want, so when we ask the questions and do our due diligence, there's different reasons for doing those things. I think we've all served here, and our goal and passion has always been to serve all children.
You don't want to be on the map for the wrong thing.
That's right. I don't want to be one of those little spots on that map he presents and not be able to have good things and good logic why we brought it here. So I'm okay, and personally, I would hop a plane. I wouldn't be comfortable doing it without walking it, looking at it, really getting a good understanding of it. I don't know how everyone else feels, but for me, I got to look it, touch it, move it, talk, ask. And if we're serious, I think I see nods from people. They would also perhaps want that as well. So just know that if there's more discussion and we're moving forward, then that would definitely be a need. Having said that, so what do we do now? I know this is just a conversation. So what's your thought process in the next steps?
Madam President, members of the board, so our idea has been to, first of all, work on the proposals. We eliminated one, is to continue to work on the scope and add layers of detail as we go, to involve you in giving us feedback as we add those layers, and continue that process as long as you feel comfortable moving forward at some point, the next step of action by the board would be to release an RFP, to give a window of time for people to respond, to bring those in and evaluate them and see if any of them merit moving forward. The calendar that I'm on is if we don't get a good response and anybody we feel comfortable going forward, we need to retask staff to implementing the International Baccalaureate program and start searching for talent on our own. And if we don't leave ourselves a window of time, in the middle of the next school year to do that, our ability to pivot will make it, even more challenging to put together Plan B. So my hope would be if some people want to go, we can do that between now and the June meeting. So when we reconvene, people have a chance to discuss what they saw, what they learned, and if they want to continue going forward in this process.
Okay.
It is all a point of, can we move forward with this innovation, or is it too much for us? And do that in a timely and responsible manner, so that when the school opens a year from now, we're ready to implement whatever that is going to be individually accelerated preparatory approach to learning.
Okay.
Does it make sense? That's a
No, I
big
appreciate.
picture and the pressure I feel like I'm under.
So are we each sending you if we want to, if this is how we're going? Because honestly, until you understand it, I don't know how you even write an RFP. And I mean, you might understand it really well. I'm learning. And to learn it, I got to see it, ask questions, talk to the leaders of it, talk to the teachers. And until I do that, I won't understand
We
it.
can vet, we can also at the next meeting, vet a draft of scope. That probably would not do anything to inhibit competition for submittals, as long as we don't talk about money, just the program.
Okay.
So we could do that at the June meeting as well. Because that will add, I think, layers of detail and understanding. So we've worked on it, but you haven't. And that sounds like another good step.
Is there any objections to kind of moving in that direction? Nope. Okay. Hopefully that gives you enough information to know your next step. And thank you. All right, so I think we're ready for item 16, correct? And Dr. Hay, that is your item. It's information
Thanks, everybody.
only.
Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you very much for staying on the phone.
Take care.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. This is an information item. A couple of years ago, when the legislature extended the education sales tax, which was formerly known as 301, without the need to send the issues back to the voters, the requirements for the Classroom Site Fund, or as it's been affectionately called, the 301 plan, also changed, hence the reason there's no action needed for this evening. But we did want to take the opportunity to share a couple of changes. They're very minimal to the plan from what you have seen before. So they include more detail in Component 1, which is what you see on the slide here. Component 1, the compensation amount was increased from $5,050 to $5,420, an increase of $370. And actually, the board will vote on that at the next item. The value of Plan 1 is increasing by this. This is a result of the review of our new allocations by the JLBC and the fund balance the district monitors. We're continuing to be conservative with this amount so that yearly fluctuations by the JLBC do not impact teacher compensation. It's one of the things that staff has been appreciative to the board for, as when other districts had to cut their funds, our district remained equal. So we added some more specifics about the responsibilities for professional performance, which continues to be centered around professional development and activities that benefit students, the school, or the district. The individual goal, which was a holdover from the days when we did TAP, about a decade ago, which was equal to $750, was combined in the professional performance piece. And so those are the changes that we have. Everything else with performance, with the parent communication piece, all remains the same. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The LEAP committee did vet this, and I would, like to take a moment to just recognize the following people. I don't believe any of them are here, but maybe they're listening. Bertha Plaza, Cody Chairlin, Cynthia Landis, Danielle Van Dalen, David Cooper, Don Robinson, Eileen Lieberman, Carrie Pitcher, Linda Stollard, Martine Diaz, Melissa Saucier, Scott Popovich, Steve Rickert, and Sue Garrison. And actually, David Cooper is in the audience trying to hide from me over there. Just wave, Dave. Just wave. Oh, yes, and Steve. He's back there, too. See, he's behind me, so I didn't see him back there.
Any questions? No, and thank you for those people that go above and beyond their own duty to serve on the LEAP committee. We realize it's another commitment and appreciate that as well. Next, Dr. Haight, I think this is an action item talking about stipends.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, members of the board. Annually, we send the stipend and addenda scheduled forward to you, and so Mr. Verrill, he's pulling that up right there. So the pieces that are in bold are the only changes to this. So for quite a few years, as one of our Teachers of the Year was recognized for going through national board certification, the national certification line in the specialized stipend includes that and several other national certification for specialty, social workers, OT, PT. All of them have two things in common, a written component and a performance component. And so this year, we would like to add the National Physical Therapy Examination, which it actually would only affect one of our employees. However, it would be an additional draw as we continue to try to hire our own and reduce costs with contract services. The other piece, and I'm sorry, the coaching piece is not new with the early, middle, and late start. We just have that on there so staff can notice that. The Classroom Site Fund or 301 components about midway down the additional responsibility addenda in the third box are the other two changes. As I just mentioned when I went over the plan, $5,420 is what we call spread pay. That's included with the teacher contract and carried out in their biweekly checks. The other measures, $3,800 for the parent communication and the achievement portion is unchanged, but it is a piece that we put together in here, so we're just asking you to approve all of that together. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Hearing none, so I will ask for a motion.
I move that the governing board approve the stipend and addenda schedule.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none opposed, motion will pass. Looks like you're doing a first reading also, Dr. Haight?
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, there are 4 policies that I'd like to bring forth this evening. I'd like to group them as A, B, and C, D because they're separated. One is for professional staff, the GCF piece, and the GDF, which is exactly the same, just is the support staff matching policy. So this section was added by ASBA when the Department of Education added an additional component, which is basically another check on those that we hire. The Human Resources Department now has to go through a portal in addition to obtaining a fingerprint clearance card and their certificate to let them know if anything is pending. I did go in there. It closely matches where we input all of our teacher data each year to show that they're appropriately certified. So it's just in alignment with some changes that were made last year in legislative session. And policy GCF and GDF, which are first reads this evening, A and B on this item, they match exactly from what you see right here on the screen.
Is there questions on policy changes? Hearing none, just turns over to Mr. Garrison.
Madam President, I'm just going to group the other two on C and D,
Okay.
which are professional staff, vacations, and holidays. Those two policies also are exactly the same because one is professional staff and one is support staff. So in July of 2020, the board made changes to these policies, and it included a temporary increase to the cap from 30 days to 36 days due to the pandemic and additional work associated with it, as well as everyone's inability to travel. So this provision was scheduled to sunset on June 30th, 2022, unless the board determined a permanent increase would be appropriate. So as it is sunsetting, we wanted to bring this to the board's attention, but the administration is not recommending the increase, and unless you want to change something, we're just showing you the policy as it stands now.
Is there questions on C&D? Hearing no questions at this point, then we'll turn it over to Mr. Garrison.
Thank you.
Madam President, Governing Board, tonight I bring recommended changes to Policy JFB Open Enrollment. These changes are to clarify the statutory requirements set forth in open enrollment programs. I'll go over the highlighted changes. School districts are now required to post open enrollment information on each school's website. This information needs to be updated every 12 weeks unless there are no changes in the individual schools. Schools are required to accept pupils throughout the school as school year's capacity allows. If students are denied, they're to be put on a wait list. You'll see language about how resident transfer pupils. This language will not be an issue for us as we allow students to request their school of choice each year and attend any of our academies. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve there. Non-resident pupils are students who live in the boundaries outside of our school district and are seeking enrollment in one of our academies. The updated policy includes a section about giving enrollment preference to and reserving capacity for students who live in our boundaries, students who were previously enrolled, and siblings. Again, this is already our practice. So the other change included in this update were about in the transportation section at the very end. Previously, policy allowed us to transport for up to 20 miles for eligible open enrollment riders, and that number was changed to 30. And at the very end, the line about the due date was struck because there's no longer a deadline to accept open enrollment applications. Used to be just for the month of March, and now we're opening it year-round. This is the first read of this policy, so no action is needed. Please let me know if there are additional questions.
Questions? Hearing none. My apologies, I think I called you Mr. Garrison, and if I did, it's late, but thank you. Next, Ms. Vanderwater, you're taking the parent-student handbook information.
Yes, President Reyes, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Freeman, and community. Tonight, I will be presenting to you a few updates and highlights to our parent-student handbook for the 2022-23 school year. I want to thank Dan Budsman for creating the beautiful cover for our handbook, and my assistant Rosa Martinez for all of her hard work in formatting and translating the handbook, as well as the many stakeholder groups that provided rich input and engaged in the overall review process. Our district theme for the FY 22-23 school year is Meant to Shine, inspired by lyrics from the Avril Lavigne song Fly. There is a light inside each one of our Littleton employees and students. Updating the handbook each year, we utilize a collaborative review process. We began the review process by asking for input from many stakeholder groups, including site secretaries, deans, assistant principals, students, directors, executive team members, coordinators, and supervisors. Each stakeholder group was provided with sections that directly relate to their roles and responsibilities to provide feedback and necessary changes for the 22-23 school year. Additionally, parents on the Parent Advisory Committee were provided with sections regarding dress code, school safety, parental involvement, and general guidelines to provide their feedback. The outcome of this review process this year allowed for the district to make a few changes that mostly resulted in procedural changes we made throughout this school year, minor statute alignments, and positive enhancements to our signature school choice program summaries. A school's parent-student handbook is one of the first and most important resources that new and returning parents and students receive. When questions arise, this is the guide to which parents, students, and administrators turn, so a quality parent handbook like ours is essential. Our handbook includes elements such as an introduction to the school district, a directory of staff members, information about educational programs, attendance information, and a calendar of events. However, in Littleton, we make the most of our parent-student handbook with additional components and more detailed materials. Listed on your screen is a list of our Littleton handbook sections. In the next part of this presentation, I will provide information on a few of the content updates. You will see a section and page number at the top of each slide, along with the content addition or change in green text if you wish to follow along on your copy attached to this agenda item. The first change is a content update, which can be found on page 19 under the LESD Online Academy. With everything that we learned as a school district and community with the LESD Online Academy for the first official year in practice, it was collaboratively decided that the LESD Online Academy will utilize a separate parent-student handbook. Currently, in this handbook, it references LESD Online for school choice, location, contact information, and hours of operation, which will stay within this handbook. A committee of key stakeholders will come together to design a separate parent-student handbook with components outlined in this handbook, but aligned to the online school. This handbook will be accessible to staff, students, and the community prior to the start of the FY 22-23 school year. Access to the handbook will be linked within this handbook and digitally accessible through Parent View and our Littleton website. This content update can be found on page 22 under Parent Involvement. In Littleton, Parent View offers a single sign-on to view school and classroom information for all of our children within a family. Parent View allows parents to stay on top of upcoming school events, classroom happenings, assignments, tests, attendance, discipline, and academic performance. Language has been added to the handbook, letting parents know it is an expectation that they log into the system throughout the course of the school year. Along with monitoring assignments, grades, and attendance, parents should use Parent View to acknowledge the handbook and select an academy during school choice time. We ask families to maintain and monitor contact information, updates to their phone numbers, email addresses, emergency contacts, and over-the-counter medications can be done all through our online Parent View portal. This resource continues to be expanded for our families' convenience. This next content update can be found on page 33 under the student enrollment section. The Littleton Elementary School District has an open enrollment policy consistent with Arizona state law. This policy can be found on the district and school websites and is available upon request. On an annual basis, the governing board sets capacity based on projected enrollment numbers, and students will be accepted throughout the school year as capacity allows. The wording in the handbook was updated to meet the new statutory requirements, as you just heard outlined by Mrs. Garrison in the previous agenda item. This content update can be found on page 33 under Student Enrollment, and it is to our signature school focus summaries. Once enrolled in the Littleton District, students have choices when registering for schools. The Littleton District has a single attendance area, which allows for families to request programs which may or may not be in the neighborhood school, and families may choose to send siblings to different schools based upon the interest of each child. Our schools and their programs have been updated to reflect current signature school focus engagement. This information includes details on the school's mission, program partnerships, career destinations, and student engagement in learning. This next content update can be found on page 37 under Student Technology. Our district determined the Student Device Protection Plan program was successful, and we are adding it to the handbook this year to make a permanent offering to all of our families. There were 1,290 student device protection plans purchased this school year. The collected funds were utilized to cover the costs of parts or repairs for insured and uninsured student laptop damages. We anticipate to have more families participate next year now that we have made it more convenient to use credit card or debit cards to purchase these policies online. This content update can be found on page 38 under Student Transportation. With careful review from our transportation department of bus ridership, it was decided we would implement a registered to ride procedure for our families beginning in the FY 22-23 school year. Based upon the home address on file, families can request bus ridership through the Parent View portal system. Messaging has already gone out to families, and the information in the handbook will be a reminder to families of the steps in the process and the reason why we chose to implement this. To control bus capacity and work efficiently, all eligible students must request transportation each year. Students will be routed as requests are received. The transportation of students is an essential part of the education system, and the transportation department is committed to safety, security, and on-time performance. I will mention that our parent-student handbook for the FY 22-23 school year will continue to be digital. So at any time throughout the course of the school year, if we have to make a change or an update, we will notify you as well as our community, and it will go live immediately. And we do print hard copies at the request of our parents. It will also be translated into Spanish. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
Thank you. Any questions? No, just, yes, Mr. Nielsen.
You answered the one question. It says there's going to be hard copy or digital, so that one got taken care of. The other one's just a comment. Thank you very much for all of you who've participated in this and put it up and summarized it so nicely and shortly so we know where to go, what to look for. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Member Nielsen.
I'll just mimic that. I know what it takes to write a policy, and it looks simple once you get it all together, but it's a lot of work. So please let everyone know we appreciate it and all the hard work goes into it.
I will do that. Thank you, President Reyes.
Dr. Freeman, I'm going to turn over the ASB proposed agenda for your discussion, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm happy to review this material with the members of the board. This comes from the School Boards Association for the state, and what you have included, we go through this every year. It seems a little strange that we're still in this legislative session, but we're talking about the next one. And so this process has, I think, kind of refined and evolved through the years, but on the cover of the memo it is proposed items to the committee are due by May 23rd. So if we want to propose something, we need to take care of that business at this meeting. There's a committee that meets June 3rd, and then on June 20th, the committee recommendations are sent to all the governing boards. And then you'll remember September 10th is that Saturday morning delegate assembly we usually send somebody to. And we don't have on the agenda today to choose a delegate, but that usually is part of our business between now and the start of the school year. So the document that you have, School Boards has put together a pretty nice policy document, and it's in 4 sections now. We still have the form that we had before, but there is adequate funding. There is local control, improved outcomes, and accountability. 4 big areas. And I think everybody would agree those are all good areas. Maybe the details would be something that would merit discussion. In what we've turned in before, our top 3 priorities were full-day kindergarten funding, special ed funding, and sustainable funding. I think our first 3 fit into that first category the school board has pretty well. And that would be kids right now in kindergarten are counted 0.5 in the weighting. The special ed weights, there is a study being done. Transportation's going to come out first. That's about ready. And then whether the weights currently being used adequately fund special ed programs. So the Department of Ed is working on that. We would have to get their recommendations adopted by the legislature for that funding amount. The last time I looked, both of those are about $250 million, $250 million to make some progress in that area. And then sustainable funding would be an increase to the base and a funding source. That, of course, is an issue if we're still cutting taxes as a state and then struggling with sustainable funding. We talked about some of the big compromise deals and things that were happening in the legislature, but I think adding to the base is pretty important. One of the things in that is the national median in per pupil funding. I looked at 2 sources last month on comparisons of Arizona to the nation. In census data was one, and then the Center for Education Law was the other. In both of those data files, Arizona is $5,600 and change, depending on which measure, below the national median. To our school district, $5,600 on our count would add $32 million to our budget if we were at the national median. So obviously we're not going to make that, but it's pretty hard to compete nationally when you are at such a low level of funding. So I think that tab is one that the board definitely would want to support. Local control is one of those things that has been under attack. The legislature is telling you more and more how to do your business. There were people who were upset with decisions made by governing boards during the pandemic that they would like to take away, not necessarily realizing the uniqueness of some communities. So I think that still is an issue. You had that as your number 4 on your sheet before, which was stop encroachment on local control. So I think you would want to keep that. Improving outcomes for all students, I know, is something that the board cares about. And public accountability has moved up. For this item, which I think is also important, there are other delivery models in the state of Arizona. So those include ESAs, STOs, and charters that do not report the same amount of information that school districts need to. They're not transparent on how they spend their money. They're not transparent on what happens with their students. So the Auditor General doesn't go through and do a school district school report on them. And obviously where that money goes should be a big concern to taxpayer, but there's a huge difference in what people are required to turn in and what the regulations for spending that are. We have a lot of restrictions that they don't have. And so I think people would like to see those things have more parity. You're intended to compete to deliver education program, but you have 2 different rule books. And so that's a big one because people are constantly questioning how we spend our money, but in those other funds, essentially people can pretty much do whatever they want. And that's a challenge for us. The 5th one that we had turned in before, which I think is still valid for us, and we may want to resubmit because I'm not sure that it really is called out in item number 1. I was going over those bullets. You can see like full day kindergarten is in there, but transportation is in there. That was a problem for us. The School Facilities Board has been reworked and restructured. They're doing a better job, but we are penalized on invisible space for the effort, the local effort we put forward because of the formula they have, and we're not the only school district. During the recession, when there was no appropriation to the School Facility Board, school districts that could pass bonds went out and added to facilities, and now that's being held against them as far as getting funds from the facility board. It's important to us and probably to some other districts that the state re-examines the calculation for invisible space. And I don't see that on the other list. Under funding, I see 301, other costs, preschool, implementing research-based programs, affordable housing options for faculty and staff. Obviously, that's an issue for a lot of places too. We have looked at, this is really kind of more of an aside, we've looked at programs where we might be able to get assistance in housing for teachers, but mostly to qualify for those funds, the teachers have to live in poverty. And I don't think keeping our teachers in poverty so they can get housing is a good long-term goal. So we're going to continue examine strategies for that. But that's an issue that's already included in their priorities. So if we were going to submit something that's not already in here, I think it would be to the school facility board, and recognizing that districts needed to do capital improvements in square footage during the recession, and that shouldn't be penalized for that.
Thank you. A lot of this crosses over almost year to year, right? I mean, it's kind of an entanglement, and we submitted, and ASB does a good job in writing it. It'll be interesting when we finally see movement on it. So we're going to sit tight and keep watching it. Is there any other suggestions, recommendations, or changes? Mr. Nielsen?
Dr. Freeman, you had something about equal funding, equal for those, whether they're charter or whatever else. Is that this one on the back page that's additional? I don't see that on the item
Two
number.
items. There's
Yeah, the additional one on the back one here. Treat everyone with, who uses state funds to deliver education programs the same. Is that the same as you were talking about?
We wrote those a year ago. They weren't in our top 5, which is our instructions, but we could, the taxpayers' dollar spent is addressed in their number 4 here.
Okay.
But the accountability, requiring audits, requiring transparency is in there, but not having some of the same rules is not in there. So one, for instance, is I pulled down the last IDL report from the city of Phoenix. Those are industrial development loans. Basis was awarded $93 million in loans to expand, underwritten by the city of Phoenix. Tracy Benson, actually from School Boards Association, went and testified. They dismissed it as bad competition feelings kind of thing. What happens is we have our debt managed by statute. We only have so much capacity. We can only go out. We have to have voter approval. They have whatever they can get somebody to loan them for as long as they want, for as much as they want, with no approval from any other voters or anybody else. They can, so where there is no enrollment demand, you can drop a school down. They did that to Peoria. I think Legacy went in and built a school right in the middle of 4 A-rated K-8 schools in Peoria, and pulled all, not all, but if you just pulled 1/4 of the enrollment out of each one to fill your school, they're all at 75%. Then the Charter Association this year put out a paper complaining that all of the schools weren't fully enrolled, you know, and why are they allowed to still exist at 75%? So, you know, that the rules that we live by being so dramatically different are an issue, and I think we touch on that. I don't see that necessarily in this taxpayer accountability, though I think this is obviously a good start. If you had to start reporting how you spend your money like we do, that might shine a little light of day and change some of the politics. Prior year and current year count is a problem. The legislature has so tinkered with the funding formula that there's a lot of ways which have made it really unmanageable, and I don't know if that's something that really could be addressed. It probably would be included in the first tab.
And I was just looking at these where we get the biggest bang for the bucks for taking care of the kids here. These have been up here for a couple of 2 or 3 years. I don't know if we brought the one here about, the one that I already mentioned about state funds and everything being a little bit equal. And I don't know which one you would move down, but move it up and see if there's any, you know, movement on it in the next year or something, or any addition to it.
I could write something for the 4th tab that we would like to see them add something about rules, spending rules and debt. And then I think the one that we would have that would be unique would be updating facility board invisible space calculations. And
I'm
we
all
can
right.
submit those for you on your behalf if you like, and then
I'm all right with
bring the
that.
draft back.
Yeah, I think if you just add language to four, it's kind of there, it's just not clear.
Yeah.
So that's appreciated. Any other comments or feedback? If not, thank you, Dr. Freeman, for all that prep work. With it, I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Mr. Nelson, you're welcome to stay all night. I have a motion.
I'll second.
Oh, okay. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 8:29. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
What is this for?